Cue the music. All right.
Cue the music.
Yes. We're waiting on the music. Our composer. Yes, here he comes. Hey, it's another Sunday, and it's the Shaker Heights Experiences May Vary podcast with your hosts, Eric Green and yours truly. Today, we got a special guest. Well, not special. He just didn't go to Shaker, but he's from Shaker. He's bona fide. His name will be Denny Young. Right now, we're just waiting, but we're gonna get into a little house clearing right now. Yeah. So, okay, we'll get this music thing smooth. That makes it so relatable. We have blemishes, imperfections, because we're all works in progress.
Works organically, you know?
Yes.
Hey, here he is.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh,
Man himself.
the man himself.
What's going on? Eric Green, I probably haven't seen you in 40 years.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. Well, let's. Wow. Where do we start?
Move him to the middle. Gabe, move him to the middle.
Okay. Hold on, Denny. We got to move you to the middle. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Man. Denny Young.
Trying to figure out this camera. This is a little different. Okay. Hi.
Yeah, you're right, perfect center. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Denny Young, Shaker resident. Yes, but he went to one of the other schools, and that's no diss or anything of that nature. I mean, Shaker was a cornucopia of schools that a lot of people went to that were other than Shaker. So, all right. Eric.
The irony never escapes me, Denny. We first interviewed John Dent, then John Denny, and now Denny Young. And
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be the first non-Shaker Heights High School graduate on this podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Wait, did John Dent graduate?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, he did with honors. Yeah.
I love John Dent. No, all good.
Yeah. Well, I would love to get a picture of Denny, Jim Mellon, and John Dent.
That'd be fun. Has Mellon been on this podcast?
No, not yet. We're tracking him down. We have a bounty hunter looking for him.
Remind me, Eric, did you have a moped back in the day?
I did for a hot second. By the time I got a moped in my area, everyone was driving. By the time,
but I remember riding mopeds with you. Like there was like you, me, Mark Nance, Jeff Schenkel. We're like the only four people with mopeds.
Well, Mares, Lukacek, and Hopkins had.
Yeah, Hopkins, I remember had a moped as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Lukacek, I'm surprised they would give him a moped license.
Well, it happened. And our mopeds got stolen out of our garages because we lived directly across the street. So we had the same moped, and I think someone followed us home from McDonald's or something, and they went into our unlocked garages and took them. Oh, hey. By the way, I have to tell you this. I sent to Gabe. I serendipitously ended up at Denny's for breakfast this morning with my girlfriend. We had no idea where to go, and we ended up at Denny's. So, irony never escapes me. So
I appreciate that. It pays for my lifestyle,
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of, Denny, we have a little housekeeping to do. I need to ask you, do you like frozen pizza?
Love frozen pizza. My daughter really loves frozen pizza.
And what kind of frozen pizza do you buy?
I buy whatever you're pitching.
Well, I'm pitching our hometown boy, Newman's Own.
Look at that. Well, I use Newman's Own salad dressing every night on my salads.
See? Well, you need to support this man's pizza, Denny.
Hey,
With this
listen,
salad.
he grew up, my mother grew up in Shaker Heights, and Paul Newman lived quite close to her.
Well, as I'm saying, who would have known that this boy from Brighton Road would grow up to be a world famous actor, a race car driver, and a maker of fine foods. All for a
And
good
on the
cause.
day of the Indy 500, Paul Newman was a phenomenal IndyCar team owner.
Wow.
Wow.
See? There you go. So another reason for everybody out there to go to your frozen section at your fine grocery store, Heinen's, Dave's, Giant, Safeway, and buy Newman's Own thin and crispy crust. Or
As soon as we're done with this interview, I'm off to Heinen's to get that.
there you go.
There you
Support
go.
this man. Support this man. R.I.P. to our Shaker legend. So we got that out of the way. Advertisement. Okay, let's get into hard tax right now. We got Denny Young. So tell us about growing up in Shaker. Were you born in Cleveland? Did your family move to the Sussex area? Yeah, give us your origin story.
Well, like you guys, I was born in 1966. Maybe one or both of you were born in 65, but I was born May 31st, 1966. So my birthday is this coming Friday.
Oh, right on.
All right.
And when my mother and father brought me home from the hospital, they brought me to Landberry Road in Warrensville Heights.
Okay.
And we lived there from the time I was born, the next 2 years. And Landberry, if you know that, like off of Warrensville, you've got Scottsdale, and then there's 3 roads that run parallel to Scottsdale, and Landberry is one of those 3 roads. So
okay.
we literally moved, as the crow flies, probably a quarter of a mile to Trainham Road, which is in the Sussex district of Shaker Heights, between Lomond and Scottsdale.
Okay. Yeah. Now, were you an only child, or did you have siblings?
I had an older sibling, my sister Tracy, and she obviously was with us, and we both went to Sussex, which was amazing experience and lifelong friends. I mean, you guys know what it was like to grow up in Shaker Heights. I mean, there's nothing better. I mean, I don't know how it is today, but if you were the 70s and 80s in Shaker Heights, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
I might have missed it. How old were you? Wow, the lag is back. Anyway, how old were you when you and your sister came to?
Yeah, I was 2 years old, and my sister would have been 5 when we moved to Shaker Heights.
Okay. So who did you gel with? Who are your friends? Who did you become friends with immediately when you got into the area?
Well, I don't remember immediately because I was 2, but by the time we got to kindergarten, Trainham Road was amazing from this respect. We had like 10 guys on Trainham, that were either class of 82, 83, 84, 85, 86. Mm-hmm. So we had pickup baseball, football, basketball from the time I could remember until I got out of high school. And we had if you guys remember these people, Kenny Danford was on Trainham Road.
Yeah.
Robert Ware was on Trainham Road. Lorenzo Henderson was on Lomond, but at the corner of Trainham and Lomond. John Miller was on the corner of Traver and Scottsdale. A guy named Doug Jackson who went to Shaker with us. He was also on Traver. He went to US when I went to US. We had Steve Schaffner, class of 83, Mike and Tim Casella, class of 82 and 84. You know, we had all Tommy Aiken, he was class of 83 at Shaker. His brother Scott Aiken was probably class of 86 or 87. Craig Kahn was class of 86, 87. So all these guys, and it was like built-in, free for all. It was amazing.
Wow, man. So you got some favorite, one or two highlights from that whole crew.
Well, I think the highlights are endless because we all were together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell a funny story because I know most of the people watching this and listening to this know our dear friend John Miller. And I had breakfast with John Miller last Saturday, and Doug Jackson, who he and John were best friends in elementary school.
Okay.
And Doug went to US with me, as I mentioned, but they haven't seen each other since high school graduation.
Oh, wow.
So I put together this breakfast last weekend because Doug was in town. And we were talking about all the places at Van Aken that we like to go to. And Doug brought up Manners, Big Boy. And both of them started laughing because Miller never had any money. Probably still doesn't have any money. And so Miller went into Bob's Big Boy, and we would order food, but Miller never ordered anything. He would wait till the table next to them left, and he would take the leftovers from that table and bring it over to our table. And that's how Miller ate at Manners Big Boy.
Wow. I've seen John Miller pull up the Belushi thing from Animal House. I've seen it in real time at Byron. I've seen it.
And by the way, on a very serious note, John Miller is still one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. I see him all the time. I love him like a brother. And if you pinned me down on one memory of growing up on Trainham Road, it was that I could throw a baseball and hit John Miller's house. That's how close we lived to one another.
Wow. Yeah. Miller. We've been trying to get him on the show. He's been like the elusive unicorn. And
well, he's got stories, man. He is still the funny guy you remember.
Yes. We're going to get him. So, John, if you're watching, we're coming for you. Okay.
Even if we have to tie you up when we come to town, we're going to find you.
Yes. Which leads us to this next thing. For those who are listening, who were in the class of 84 at Shaker, the reunion's coming up July 19th through the 21st. Some bills have to be paid. So if you haven't got your ticket money in, please hit up Mac McNulty. Go to the Shaker Facebook page, Class of 84 page. You'll get all the information there on how to pay. But
are you both coming in for the reunion?
Yes.
Definitely,
yes. Yeah.
Can a Class of 84 US guy come to the reunion?
Yeah. I tell you, we're going to be at Van Aken District, that place called Paloma, on the roof on, I think it's Friday night. And then Saturday, we're going to be out at that food truck park out there on Beechwood.
The 30th Shaker reunion, John Miller was in charge of organizing. And he invited me. And I was going to come. Because, I know all you guys, and I know people from Sussex. Just know too many people. And I got sick, like the flu, that day and couldn't come. And I asked John how the reunion was. And he was like, man, I didn't even go. I go, what? You organized it. And he didn't even go to the reunion. But he did promise me he's coming to this one.
Well, that's good. Because we also plan to do some broadcasting from the reunion. So, as long as the places have good Wi-Fi. And hopefully, do some group convo stuff. So no, that'd be good. You come through, man. What are the tickets? I think it's $50 for Friday night and $40 for Saturday night at the food truck park there on Chagrin. man, I mean, I've been gone 3 years, and it feels like that place is continuing to change. Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep you posted for those nights. Yeah, the 19th.
Yeah, send me a link.
Yeah. Oh, but most importantly, Sunday, the 21st.
Sunday.
From 2 to 4 p.m., we have Ludlow, Moreland versus everybody in kickball.
Oh, wow.
So that would also include you. So if you do choose to come through and play, and I'm gonna start the shit talking because I know that Denny went to Sussex and Eric went to Lomond, right? Or did you go to Sussex?
Oh, I went to Montessori school, but I lived.
That's right. He went to Montessori school over in Cleveland Heights. So, but I'm just saying, Ludlow and Moreland are gonna whoop that ass. Okay, so just putting it out there to everybody. We're gonna whoop that ass. Okay.
I mean, another great memory is kickball, right? I mean, like we all played kickball.
Yeah.
Are you going to have one of those brown synthetic balls like we used?
Yeah, like the red ball. Yes, and we'll have some bases. Yeah.
Did you go to? I don't mean to interrupt because we want to kind of go in a linear thing.
We're like
where you started right whatever. But did you ever go to the Shaker Day camps? Like at Sussex or Lomond?
I didn't go to Shaker Day camp. I went to, and a lot of Shaker people went here. I went to Hawken Day camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Hawken. I think I remember that.
And by the way, when Gabe and I were talking earlier before we got on here, he mentioned Attic. And obviously, we all lost Tim Elliott, who's amazing, great friend to everybody.
Yeah.
But Tim, I met on the bus going out to Weehawken Day Camp, and I was telling Eric Smith, who was the bass player for Attic and Steve's older brother, when Tim passed away, I said, I remember getting on the bus that day, and I think Tim Elliott was wearing like a Kiss t-shirt, and I was like, I just literally looked at him, and I didn't even know him, and I said, man, that's my favorite band. We were like 10 years old, and we became fast friends from that moment on. And so sad that he's gone, really.
Yeah. No, these last couple years, our peers, it's been quite a few. And, I think even in our class at Shaker, we've had at least like 4 or 5 people within the past 2 years, So, yeah, that's why, like the 40th, I feel like it's not the end all one, but it kind of feels like, this is, come through, because there's no guarantee there's a 50th,
right.
And, with everything. So
this is it,
Yeah. La Vida Loca. So, confessions and revelations and all that stuff, get them out at the 40th, beefs, loves, whatever.
I'm crashing. That's it. You sold me.
Yes. Show up with your U.S. varsity jacket on.
If I could find it, we moved. I have no idea where it is.
That's how I remember you. I always remember you with your glasses, your U.S. leather jacket, or what you were wearing, and your red hair, definitely.
Yeah.
And I always remember you with your catcher's gear. I always remember that.
Yes.
I still wear glasses, and I don't have the red hair. As you guys can see, most of that's gone. And that leather jacket is somewhere in my new house or in storage, but I can't find it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I was looking for it. Because I got in college, somebody gave me a vintage Iowa leather jacket.
Oh.
And when Iowa made the Final Four in Cleveland, and my daughter and I were going down to the game, the semifinal game, I wanted to wear my Iowa jacket. And I always kept it with my U.S. jacket. Couldn't find either one of them.
Oh, not yet, at least. It'll turn up when you least expect it. And that's always sucks. You're like, damn, I could have wore that. So let's get into U.S. So what grade did you go into U.S.? Did it start at 7th or?
I started 7th grade. And, my sister, because she's 3 years older, and my mother grew up in Shaker, and my mother went to Laurel, like she was a lifer at Laurel.
I see.
And so there was always this notion that my sister was going to go to Laurel, but obviously boys can't go to Laurel. So I thought, well, I'm cool. It's not going to affect me. And then somewhere in like the fall of 6th grade, my mom's like, oh, Saturday morning, you got to go to university school and take this test. I didn't even know what university school was. I said, what's that?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, it's a boys' school like the school your sister goes to. And I said, well, why do I have to take a test? And she said, we're going to send you there next year. And, you know, man, my Shaker friends were my best friends, and I loved them dearly. And the last thing I wanted to do was like leave them. And I remember telling Steve and John Miller and Jimmy Lardy and Robbie Yanyalanis and Vince Cobb and all these guys, I got to go take this test at US on Saturday. And they're like, are you going to go there next year? And I said, well, my parents want to send me there. And like in unison, they're all like, just fail the test. Just answer every question wrong. If you fail the test, you can't go.
Right,
You know, I have too much pride. I wasn't going to fail the test.
Right.
You know, but it was really a bummer, man. I have to be honest with you. It was a weird adjustment. And there were 4 guys from Shaker that went to US that year, our grade. Mark Fleming, who you guys probably know and remember.
Yes.
Kurt Montlack, who you would know and remember. And this guy, Doug Jackson, that I referenced earlier, that lived on John Miller Street. And the 4 of us showed up, and we all knew each other. And it was literally like us against US. And somebody had to finally tell us, no, you guys are US now. But we never gave up the Shaker. I mean, like, you know, you can take, what's that saying? You can take the kid out of Shaker, but you can't take Shaker out of the kid.
Right.
I was really upset, and I'm not kidding. It was depressing leaving my friends and going to that school.
So how long did it take to get adjusted to it? And did you enjoy the experience and the campus and all that?
It took me, not kidding, it probably took over a year. And Kurt Montlack left after 7th grade. He went 1 year and then went to Byron. He didn't want anything to do with it. Took me maybe a year and a half, maybe like by the middle of 8th grade. But honestly, Eric, I don't think I ever fully fit in there. I think I like my heart and mind were always at Shaker. I mean, Steve Smith from, you know, elementary school to this day, you know, is like my brother, like my closest friend. Steve, John Miller, Eric Smith, and John Johnson, who is a grade behind us, are all on a text. We're in touch multiple times a day, every day. And, you know, I miss those guys. And you can say, well, you can see them on the weekend, but you guys know because you were there. There's something about being there every minute, every hour. You miss so much stuff. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So was the culture that much different, or did you just miss your friends? I mean, did you make new friends? Is that what took so long to adapt to it, or was it the culture itself that you were having difficulty to adapting to?
It's a great question. And ultimately, the end result of university school was I got a really good education, but I know I would have gotten that at Shaker because Shaker's an elite public school. You know, I excelled at 2 sports there, but I probably would have done the same at Shaker. You know, you hit it. It was the culture. And I'm hesitant to say too much because this is a podcast that will live out there. But, you know, it's just different. And I think that, you know, a lot of the kids started there in kindergarten. So by the time you get there in 7th grade, they had their cliques. You know, all of the stereotypes about US and money. And we all know there's a bunch of money in Shaker as well. But there's more kind of pressure and emphasis on that. Like I never felt that at Shaker. Right. And Steve Smith used to say to me, you know, in Shaker, you would ask somebody, are you going on vacation for spring break? And at US, they'd say, where are you going on vacation at spring break? And I just think that puts a lot of pressure on kids.
Yeah,
It's not cool.
Yeah. Because it's reinforcing, like, I feel like a caste system, of sorts, like social econ caste system, and and people are easily placed in levels of that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And there were super rich kids at Shaker, class of '84, and we know who they are. And then they had giant houses and swimming pool and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But man, you never knew it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And at US, you knew it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good thing.
No. I believe I think about that title that guy wrote like years back, The Millionaire Next Door. It's like secure, wealthy people don't need to flash their wealth. They don't need to flash it, and get that external validation. Look at me, Gucci, whatever is that, Balsiniga, whatever. I'm just.
Yeah, that's because Shaker is old money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one other thing, Eric, is, and I know like level 5 courses at Shaker, like, back in the day, those were the AP and the honors courses. And, Shaker put out, tons of kids going to Ivy League schools. But man, US was brutally hard. And I was an above average student with above average academic intellect. And I just got my ass kicked. And what happens is you begin to tell yourself, I'm not smart. I'm not getting good grades. Everybody's smarter than me. What's wrong with me? And I didn't really realize that I was, academically accelerated until I went to college. And I went to Miami of Ohio. And when I got there, and Miami of Ohio is a good school.
Yeah.
But it was much easier than US. And I just think US was unnecessarily hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was like a little Shaker anyway. That was pretty much your reunion, wasn't it? When you went to Miami, Ohio. That's what I heard, at least.
Yeah. A lot of Shaker kids went there. One of the things you guys know too, like from a social standpoint, I always talk about like class of 83, 84, 85 at all of the schools, US, Laurel, HB, Hawken, Shaker, Beechwood, St. Ignatius, Benedictine, Gilmore, Cleveland Heights, all those schools. Everybody was cool with one another. Like we all knew each other. We all went to these same parties. And so even going to Miami, it's like, there's people there from St. Ignatius and Benedictine that, I grew up hanging out with on the weekends, and it was a little bit of a reunion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
So if you've listened to the show, I carry some anger with baseball, especially with the baseball coach that we got. Did you get to play for Fred Heinlein?
I played for Fred Heinlein at US my freshman year. Are you pro or negative Fred Heinlein? I just want to be careful.
I'm not anything. All I know is what we got left with. Longo probably should have been our coach, from what I understand. But when I was in 9th grade playing for Byron, I pitched. We probably played you. And I remember like how far the backstop was from home plate. And I had dead nuts control that day. And Heinlein was saying, well, you got to swing because this guy's got pinpoint control, which was the only day I probably had. And I was thinking,
he was a difficult person. Now, remember, he won a state championship at Shaker.
Yeah, 76 or 77.
Yeah, and they had like some great players on that team. And then by the time I was at Upper School US, he was an assistant football coach at Upper School US, and he was the freshman baseball coach. And he told us, like 25 kids go out for the team, or 20 kids, whatever it was. And he said, listen, I'm only going to carry 12 guys on the team, and I'm only going to play 9. And, you know, if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he was that direct. And I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, it's like life's tough and you got to make the cut or whatever and compete. But on the other hand, you know, we're in ninth grade. And, you know, why can't we have two baseball teams? You know, and even if the other team only scrimmages a school or something, it's just too young, I think, to be that blunt and that brutal. I was fortunate to be on the team and to play, and you're right. I'm a catcher. I hated that backstop because anything gets by you and you're running and running and running. But we were playing Byron, and maybe this is a game you started, Eric. I can't remember.
Yeah, I did. I think I did. Yeah.
And the score was like 5-4. In the would be the.
You remember this?
No, I do remember this. I'll tell you why.
Wow.
The score was like 5-4 Byron in the bottom of the sixth inning. And Byron brought on Robbie Mears to pitch. And in Shaker Boys League, Robbie and I were on the same team like 4 years in a row. And Robbie pitches and I catch.
Yeah.
So I knew Robbie better than anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had guys on second and third. And I first pitch Robbie throws. And, you know, he had that sidearm throw. Yeah. And I hit that ball, whoever was playing center field, I don't know if that was Hopkins or who would have been at Byron center field.
Why was it? It might have been me.
Well, it went over your head.
Okay.
And I hit a bases clearing triple, so we go up 6-5.
That was me. I could run down a ball, but I could not hit a freaking ball. I had a hitch, which I got from Bobby Bonds when he came to Cleveland. But go ahead.
No, so now we're at the top of the seventh, and Steve is up, first batter up. And Steve always likes to remind everybody that he played baseball and ran track in the same season at the same time.
And he beat Danny Wyman in racing.
So he's the first guy up, and our pitcher guy, David Pinkerton walks Steve. So I can't remember who comes up next for Shaker, but that kid strikes out. So there's one out. And I know Steve is going on the first pitch of this next batter. I just had this instinct and this gut. He's my best friend. And I know he thinks he's faster than I can throw.
Yeah, right.
I call a pitch out on the very first pitch, and sure enough, he goes. I throw a rifle, by the way, history here, a rifle down to second base. Jason Garrett, who would go on to become the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Jason was our second baseman.
Oh, wow.
Jason catches the ball and tags Steve out. After the game, and we made the last out, so we won. After the game, when the teams go by each other to shake hands, when I'm going by to hit Steve's hand, he pulls it back.
Oh.
I remind him of that quite frequently.
So I think it was Jim Mellon in center field. I think they stuck me in right. I think that's what it was. Yeah. So maybe I can clear myself. I'm not doing that. I just remember Mellon was fast too. But yeah, what a memory! My goodness.
That's just because that's a good memory. Trust me, I don't remember all the times I struck out.
I remember striking out with the bases loaded twice at Byron, and that was like I was like fifth in the batting order. And after that, our coach, I forgot the coach's name. He says, "Yeah, the reason why you're on this team is because you field and you can pitch. Your hitting is just horrible." And I thought, man, I get to Byron, they're going to teach me how to hit. Like, this is big time, man. You know? So
yeah, wow.
Wow.
You know, baseball and Shaker Boys League, that is how I met Gabe Tolliver.
Yes. Junior A.
Junior B.
Oh, was it Junior B? Oh, wow.
It was our first year playing, and Fred Mosier was our coach.
Right. Fred Moser.
And Pat Walker's father was our assistant coach.
Okay.
Yeah, I played for Pat Walker's dad later on, I think, in senior B.
Wow, Eric Mosier. I think that was Eric Mosier's dad.
Eric Mosier, it's exactly what it was. And I think Fred Mosier was the head of the band at Shaker. Like he's the conductor or whatever, the director of the band.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Mr. Mosier. I remember Mr.
That's
Mosier.
right. Wow, man, that jarred loose a memory because he lived like diagonally across the street from me. He lived next door to the Van Valkenburgs, and he had the amazing Hot Wheel collection. I hope he still has those because those would be worth a lot.
Denny, do you have any of your? This always turns into a Little League baseball thing.
That's what Keith Asamoto said when he commented on when I posted the video. Oh, there's gonna be another Shaker Boys League.
Yeah, exactly. So, does anyone? Do you have pictures of the old Shaker Boys League jerseys that we wore? Because I want to reproduce those and sell them on our merch site. There's a bunch of ideas I have, but I don't have one picture of any of that stuff.
The answer is, I don't think so. But I know that there are some people like on Facebook that we grew up with because I've seen them. And I know what you're talking about with that baseball there.
Right.
But I do have a picture, and this would be like 1976, the first year we played Junior B. I have a picture of you and me.
Really?
Yeah, my parents must have taken it, and I still have it.
Wow, man. I hope you can find it. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's probably with my U.S. letter jacket, but I'll find it.
But
yeah,
was that the Polaris or the Lions?
No, we were the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs. We had the orange.
Orange. That's right.
Yes, orange and black lettering. Yes. I probably have
Asamoto's got it. Asamoto, I wonder if he's got some stuff, that his dad had as a coach, like pictures. I was wondering if he would have any of that stuff.
Well, when we do the Shaker Boys League episode, we'll definitely ask him if he does. Oh, this is a random thing about Keith Asamoto. Did you know his dad was an architect, and he had his architect office, I think, in the same building as the bowling lanes or next to it, but it was real close to the Baskin Robbins there. But he designed the police station.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you know that the Shaker Heights police station was blown up?
Yeah, I saw the photos. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll bet Asamoto's dad was the architect on the one that currently exists because they had to rebuild that in like 1974 or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We heard it when it blew up. I guess I didn't hear it, but my sisters remember it, hearing it from. We're on Lomond off of Lee Road, right next to the school, and we heard it.
I remember my parents driving me by. We were young.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing, it was in rubble.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember reading the aftermath, and especially at that time, because was that around the time of Danny Green and all the car bombings? Because Cleveland was known at one point as like the car bombing capital of the world. So I'm trying to, man, I wonder if that was around that. Or
but I don't think it had anything to do with that, though.
No, but I'm just saying, like, the whole bombing in Cleveland was like a frequent thing.
You want to hear something? Let me tell you this. This is an I digress moment. A guy I was taking a vocational arts course at Orange in my senior year. And this kid went to Mayfield, and his mom told me that they were going to private school with Danny Green's kids. And every morning, Danny would go and check under his car to make sure there was nothing tied to it.
Nuts.
Now, I don't know if they were carpooling with them or not, but yeah, it was nuts, man.
He was blown up. I think he was blown up at, if you guys remember this, there's the intersection of Brainerd and Cedar, and it's like Pepper Pike.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the tail end of Beechwood. I can't remember. But there's like a medical building there, and I think that's where his car was blown up, in that parking lot.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, because my friend lived in Gates Mills, so yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
You
Cleveland
remember?
was wild, man.
How about Joseph Demyamyuk? How long that story was when they were trying to figure out whether they were going to deport him if
Yeah,
he
that
was
went on
the
for.
guard at the Nazi death camp.
Yeah, but he wasn't Shaker. He was like Seven Hills or something.
No, I was just thinking about all the stuff that was going on in Cleveland in that time. But it seemed like the catastrophic stuff happened in our city for some reason. Like,
Well, I didn't know about that whole balloon fiasco. Did you know about that, Denny?
I didn't either.
Like,
I was in Cleveland.
there was like this massive balloon release. There was supposed to be up to 1 million balloons that they were going to release in downtown Cleveland.
At the Terminal Tower at the.
Like when we were kids.
Yeah. It was.
No,
like
it wasn't when we were kids. No, it was.
Was
like,
it the 80s?
It was 80s or 90s or maybe.
And what happened? I'm vaguely remembering or recalling what happened.
Oh, like the balloons, flew off course, and like a bunch of them like landed in Lake Erie, and it messed up the ecosystem for a hot second or something crazy. But there's like footage online. It's like, it's an incredible sight to see, like almost 1 million balloons going up, and it didn't do what they wanted it to do. So.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up. No, I was say we grew up. I don't think we realized it when we were growing up that, Cleveland was kind of the butt of these jokes. I mean, I loved growing up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the winter, like I just didn't know anything different.
Right.
So okay, it snows and it gets cold.
Yeah.
But when we were growing up, the Browns were terrible, minus the 1 year. The Indians were terrible, and the Cavs were terrible, minus 1 or 2 years. And now I have twins, and they're 17.
Oh, wow.
And like the Guardians, Indians, because they've been alive for both names, like they're routinely good and in the playoffs. The Cavaliers, obviously, all the LeBron years my kids got to witness. And, finally the Browns got back to where they needed to be. But, I mean, we grew up with just crap sports teams.
Yeah. And, and we had a lot of great players on those teams that went off to have better careers elsewhere. When I think about the Indians and the Yankees, that whole pipeline to the Yankees.
Yeah. Greg Nettles, Chambliss.
Yeah.
Oscar Gamble.
Yeah.
Dick Tidrow, all those guys. Hey, got a question. So let's get you to college. Miami of Ohio, what happened there? And then what got you into the field that you're in? Because I want to hear about that.
So on my graduation day at US, this is just kind of an interesting tidbit. And I had my 40th US reunion last weekend.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Our commencement speaker was the brother of the headmaster's wife. And the commencement speaker was Bowie Kuhn, who was the commissioner of baseball at that time. And his sister was married to the headmaster, so they got him in. And that was pretty cool. And then, I had that final summer in Cleveland, went to Miami. The most impactful thing at Miami for me was studying abroad my junior year. Miami's got a school in Luxembourg, which is in Central Europe. Mm-hmm. And I went there, and that's a life-changing experience for sure. And made great friends, came back for, final year at Miami, graduated, and came back to Cleveland and got a job near immediately with Belkin Productions, which was the big concert promoter at the time.
Yes. Speaking of, little tangent, the Doors shirt.
Oh, I can't even see that. Is Eric wearing a Doors shirt?
No. I was going to go grab it, but I don't want to do it. So on our website, on our merch site, I found out just serendipitously, I'm using that word for the second time, that the Doors in '68 were supposed to perform at the football field. But it got so much publicity that they had to move it to Public Hall. But there are flyers. It was promoted by Belkin Productions.
And that show at Public Hall, when I worked at Belkin Productions, they had like 3 settlement sheets up on the wall, framed on the wall. And that door show at Public Hall was one of those 3 settlement sheets.
Wow.
Well, go to our site because I ripped off the original flyer and with bad typeset and all, at least from the picture that I got. And we sell a T-shirt on our website.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, interestingly enough, we'll come back to Miami, but I was in Italy with my family 2 years ago, and we're in Florence, and my son loves music and loves bands and concerts, and there was this really cool T-shirt shop we stumbled upon. So he wanted to go down and look, and he's seen like, a Cure shirt and an Alice in Chains shirt, and I want to buy this, I want to buy that. And I'm rifling through all these shirts, and there's like 15 black shirts all piled up, the same shirt. I go, oh my God. It was a World Series of Rock, Cleveland Stadium, Belkin Productions WMMS shirt in Florence, Italy.
Wow.
So I bought like 8 of them to bring home to people I know here. The woman, she didn't understand. Like, wait, you sure you want all these? I said, yeah, we got to get them. That was crazy. But I went to Belkin Productions. I worked there for 5 years. And then a friend of mine from Miami, who's now big anchor at Fox News. By the way, I don't take Fox, CNN, and I watch them both, try and stay in the center here. He talked me into traveling around the world with him. He also had studied in Luxembourg with me, and we quit our jobs, traveled around. I went for like 5 months. He went for 9 months.
Wow.
I came back from that trip, and I got a job almost immediately at IMG. Which was the sports version of Belkin Productions, but instead of being regional like Belkin Productions was, IMG was global. Right. So they had operations all over the world. It was a giant company. And
they had Tiger. You guys had Tiger Woods and everybody.
Correct.
Are you saying past tense? Do they still exist?
Well, so I was there for a decade and had a great experience, great time, made great lifelong friends, and had a really phenomenal business experience. And I left with my now business partner. And maybe 3 weeks after we started our company, this chairman, CEO, and owner of IMG, Mark McCormick, got very sick and went into a coma. And then he died. And a couple of years later, the company sold for the first time. And then in 2012, it sold for the second time. So when I was there, Eric, we were a Cleveland fixture. It was the world headquarters. There was 500 employees there. Name was up on the building. And it was the epicenter of all things IMG. And today, now 2 owners later, it's really headquartered in Los Angeles with big operation in New York. And I think they've got maybe 40 people in Cleveland, maybe. So it still exists, but it's under different ownership, and it's vastly different than when I was there.
Okay. Wow.
So is Belkin still a name in the concert business? And you got to talk to us about what's going on with the Ticketron stuff, this class lawsuit.
Yeah, so Belkin Productions sold in 2000 or 2001 to SFX, which became Clear Channel Entertainment, which became Live Nation. Yeah. So Belkin Productions no longer exists. Oddly and incidentally, our offices for our company, Elevation, are in the old Belkin offices in Chagrin Falls.
Wow.
So that's kind of a cool little thing.
Yeah.
So I was there, I left there, went to IMG, and then left IMG after 10 years, started my own company. We're involved in sports and music. The Live Nation Ticketmaster Department of Justice lawsuit is obviously a big topic of conversation, not only in the music industry, but also the sports industry, because Ticketmaster has so many sports teams and venues that they ticket as well. So my personal opinion, Live Nation and Ticketmaster are too strong, too all-encompassing. I believe for sure they make it difficult, if for no other reason than their size and their buying power, for everybody else in the industry. The government has been on their ass for a while. I don't know what will happen here, and it probably will take a really long time, but it certainly will be a distraction for them. And yeah, they have a stranglehold on the industry. I mean, we do stuff, but I mean, like, you know, it's cool, it's good for us, it's big for our company, but we could never compete with a Live Nation. I mean, that's a multi-billion-dollar operation.
Yeah. So tell us about Elevation Group. Yeah. So this was the company that you started with your partner that left IMG with you.
Correct. So we started the company in 2003.
Okay.
And the original kind of book of business was all related to big corporate sponsors, consulting, negotiating their sponsorship agreements, and then activating those sponsorships, you know, helping them market them and bring them to life. And that evolved over time. We have this little boutique television production company, and we've done a bunch of music television specials. We got back into the live event business, doing beach volleyball events and figure skating events, which are carryovers from IMG. We own a number of music festivals and do specialty concerts. But that's really kind of what we do. And today, you know, that all happens, and we've added equestrian to that because one of our big corporate clients is a giant sponsor in the equestrian world, which is show jumping, what they call dressage, which is kind of a horse ballet, and cross country, which is a timed race for horses on a course, but one horse at a time. And that's really fascinating. I mean, we just got back from England. We were there for a big event, 10 days ago. And I find it to be really cool. It's different. Yeah. It's a lot of money circulates around the equestrian events, as you might imagine. Yeah. They've got their own kind of fashion and clothing, and it's cool. And really interesting people. I mean, from, the royal family in England to Bill Gates to, all kinds of celebrities. I mean, horses, like race cars, if you have a lot of money, that's something to do.
Yeah, yeah. I know, like F1 is the rage, ever since that Netflix series came out. I'm a big fan of that because that's how I got fully introduced to F1. Yeah, I can see that. Is Ralph Lauren a big presence in branding at these equestrian events?
Actually, it's not, because like I said, they've got kind of their own brands, like Ariat, Dewberry. I mean, probably most people kind of don't know these brands.
Right,
I'm telling you guys, if you came to an equestrian event, you'd be walking out with 3 bags of gear. It's really cool. It's very similar, Gabe, to the idea of all the Formula One gear. Like I go down to Miami, and there's a great store down there on South Beach that it's like Formula One. That's all they have, and it's just stuff you can't get elsewhere. It's just cool.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very cool.
So I gotta be fanboy, okay? So growing up in this musical environment, growing up in Shaker and all your friends, like what were some key moments? What were one of your favorite moments in working in the the entertainment industry? Did you meet some of your heroes or what have you, or were you disappointed in meeting some of your heroes?
No, it's interesting. I was telling Eric when we were talking about Tim Elliott's passing, I said, when Attic would play, and we were like in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, like I thought like Attic is like they're gonna be something. Like these guys are so good. And I was in awe of what I thought they could be. And I know you've had John Denny on this program, and I know that John has gone on to do some really great things in the music space. And I know how talented he was. I haven't seen him in 40 years, but I know, he's just amazing talent. All those guys were. So I kind of felt like Attic was going to be something, and then at the same time, you don't know that Jason Garrett will be anything. And Jason Garrett ends up being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for like 9 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. You just don't know. And one thing I've learned, and then I'll answer your question, you never really know about people that you don't know. So you have to treat everybody with respect. You have to be kind to everybody. You have to be personable and professional, because in today's world, a guy with a suit might have nothing, and a guy with long hair wearing sunglasses might be a billionaire. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Very true.
So to answer your question, I was a huge U2 fan starting my junior year of high school, kind of somewhere between sophomore and junior year. And I'm still to this day a huge U2 fan. And when we were doing these music television productions for PBS, they were all Irish music-centric performance programs. And mostly like geared towards 50, 60, 70-year-olds. And we would tour these artists in performing arts centers, and it was cool. But the last project on the Irish music tip that we did was a multi-part documentary series called Music of Ireland. And what it was set to do was how contemporary Irish music impacted basically America and what kind of became our contemporary music starting back in the 40s and 50s. And it's fascinating. But we had all of these artists on the program, and U2, to their credit, gave us incredible access, spent a lot of time with us, opened the door to archival documents and video. They did a benefit show on their 360 tour at Carnegie Hall. It was like high-end to benefit Red. That's one of Bono's charities.
Right. I remember that with the
And they had a star-studded cast like Lady Gaga, Courtney Love, the late Lou Reed and his wife Laurie Anderson, Shane McGowan, who recently passed away from the Pogues, like this really great group of people. And I got to spend a really good amount of time with those guys. And at first I was literally speechless. I couldn't say anything. And as time went on and we spent more time together, my wife and I went to London for kind of this final interview right after Thanksgiving 2010, and to interview U2. And Bono got there early. It was at a friend of ours' house, but that guy does all this live sound design for U2. So the band knows him, and they were comfortable doing the interview at his house in London. And we spent like hours talking to Bono, who is a chatterbox anyway. And at that point, having kind of been around him 2, 3, 4 times, we were having a normal conversation literally about history. And it was just real, and it was fascinating. And, I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that again. That was very cool.
Wow.
Now, I have to ask you this. So, entertainment-wise, you've been really close to the industry and you've seen a lot of changes. And I know that there's really no money in recording anymore. And I think that's why we're seeing a big spike in ticket prices. I'm paying $200 to go see, Todd Rundgren or what have you. The ticket prices have just become outlandish. I remember it used to cost as much to get into the show as it did for a t-shirt, which seemed outlandish then. What have you seen the industry evolve into, and where do you see the future of this industry from your point of view?
Well, all the rage for the last few years has been publishing. And I know that you're talking about recording, and there's been a lot written about, that an album cycle would fuel everything else. And now it's like touring, they'll say, fuels everything. So it used to be you put out a record and you would tour to promote the record. Right. Now you tour, and it's the opposite. Instead of the record leading, the tour leads and the new product comes behind that. Mm-hmm. But publishing, which is the writer's share of, the composition, if you will, has become a very lucrative and very valuable business. So when you see Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan or Neil Young selling their publishing catalogs, they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I guess that's why Daryl Hall and John Oates are at loggerheads right now, wanting to kill each other because Oates wants to sell his publishing part of their company. So I guess.
And it's kind of like the real estate market, because it's been all the rage for the last few years, but it's starting to kind of come down. And, those companies that everybody, private equity, was putting money into and go buy catalogs and let's do publishing, it is starting to slow down. The biggest deals that you've seen are probably for a long time going to be the biggest deals you've seen. It's like that wave is kind of coming, not to an end, but it's calming down. On the live side, since the pandemic, 95%, the top 5% of artists, they'll always sell at whatever price and do really well. That's not the industry's problem. The industry's problem is what happens from 94 below. What happens to mid-level acts? What happens to baby acts? Selling tickets is not easy. Concerts are a regular occurrence, more so than when we were growing up. People are touring much more frequently since the pandemic because they basically had 2 years of lost wages. So that creates a glut of content on the road, and we have economic challenges, the world. So if you're putting 2 or 3 times the amount of shows out there that wouldn't exist in a pre-pandemic normal year, and people are feeling a squeeze on their wallets, they really do have to pick and choose. Yeah. And tickets have gotten wildly expensive. And yes, some of that is driven by the artist and the guarantees. And some of that is driven by the secondary market, because no matter who the artist is, there's still a segment of people that will say, I'll pay $1,000 to be in the front row. I don't care. Yeah. And so people know that. So everything kind of trickles down from that, and concerts get expensive until, and this is not cool, until Live Nation says, oh, for the next 10 days, we're going to sell tickets to 5,000 shows for $25. So people are now trained to say, I don't have to buy tickets when they go on sale. I can always get them the best seats for the secondary market for whatever price, and I'll pay that. Or I'll just wait till Live Nation puts tickets down to $25. There's no incentive to buy early. And so as a promoter and as a producer of events, you really want to get a handle on how many people are coming. And you used to be able to say, well, if I put a show on sale and I sell X amount of tickets, I know by the end I'll do X plus 0.75. Today, you don't sell as many tickets on the on sale unless it's, Coldplay, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, etc., the biggest artists. So it's a problem. It's having an effect on the industry. And, it makes things riskier. This morning, I got a text from one of my colleagues. The Black Keys pulled down their tour. They didn't give any reason. Somebody on Twitter posted this morning, like, the Ticketmaster seating chart, and all it showed was a sea of blue seats. Like, nobody was buying tickets because there's no incentive to buy tickets early.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. I've been paying tons of money. I don't go on vacation. I go see concerts. Or if I go on vacations, they're centered around concerts. Got to ask you this.
Yeah.
So I know you're to me, I equate you with the Cleveland Grand Prix, and you've seen a definite renaissance in Cleveland, especially when LeBron came and then he left. What do you see with all this development we're seeing on the internet and all that stuff? What can you tell us about what's going on in Cleveland, and what can we look forward to?
Well, again, these things have peaks and valleys, and I have been here, other than work travel, my whole life, and certainly since college, I've only worked in Cleveland. When the Flats kind of blew up and became this big entertainment district, and the Indians, were selling out every game, nationally, people didn't know that, because it takes a minute for things to kind of populate and percolate. So by the time I would be on the road for work, oh yeah, I'm from Cleveland, and this would be like 2005. People like, oh, I heard the Flats are crazy cool, and there's all kinds of people downtown, and your baseball team sells out every game. I'm like, that was like 10 years ago, So we had that moment, and then we didn't. And then I do believe that LeBron was his sheer presence and the attention that brought Cleveland, particularly the second time around, when we go to the NBA Finals 4 years in a row, and the Indians / Guardians got really good again. 2016 was crazy. We had the Republican National Convention. We had the World Series. We had the NBA championship. There was so much going on. And then people get interested in development is created. And people are like, well, this is a cool place to be. More people are living downtown Cleveland than ever in our history. That's a good thing. I think that building is still lagging behind. I think that Cleveland definitely gets hit harder economically than some of these rising cities, Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh. Chicago's always going to do well. Dallas always does well, et cetera. But, I just mentioned 3 and add like Austin, Texas in there. There are these cities that have become like tech hubs and innovation hubs, and Cleveland is not that, sadly. And I do worry about that long term. But it's a beautiful place to raise a family. It's safe. The sports teams are very entertaining. We get good concerts, but I wouldn't say that we get every big act anymore, which is a little unfortunate. The art museum, the orchestra are still a big deal. the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a big deal. So, Cleveland is kind of holding its own in difficult environment.
Yeah. I would say Columbus is one of those cities on the rise.
100%. And what happens in Columbus, Gabe, is 60,000 kids go to Ohio State. And so every year, if the graduating class is, 17, 18,000, and companies like Nationwide and The Limited, and Cardinal Health, these giant Columbus companies are going right to Ohio State and hiring these vibrant, young, smart kids. And those kids are not leaving Columbus. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Columbus is doing great in that regard. Pittsburgh is doing great in that regard. And Cleveland is lagging behind.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because I feel like Cleveland gets in its own way. I was down in Columbus last Friday for craft work, and just going back earlier for ticket prices, I paid $200 for a ticket. And
I've got a guy that I work with, and he went to craft work. I wish I'd known you were going to be down there.
Yeah, man. Wow. And we wound up in the general area in front of the stage standing, but for the 200 ticket, I think it would have been up first tier at a table and whatever. But I thought it was going to be like the craft work where they passed out the glasses and everything else.
Which I saw in Cleveland when they were inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So,
I digress.
yeah, no, all good. But yeah, I feel like, Cleveland is just like it's still like a sleeping giant that doesn't fully realize it has weight that it can carry and it can hold its own, historically, just so much,
what's awesome in Cleveland, and there has been a lot of renovation and building down there.
Yeah.
University Circle is amazing. I mean, the Natural History Museum just did I don't even know how many millions of dollars renovation. It is extraordinary. Yeah. The Art Museum did a whole renovation, kind of right before the pandemic. It is extraordinary. All the building around Case Western Reserve University. And here's the innovation: Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals. And Cleveland is a medical mecca for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's going to get.
It's kind of nice that we're the underdogs because it keeps it affordable for the
time being. I mean, I feel I have this theory that climate change, as it continues, it's going to draw a lot of people to the Midwest, especially around the Great Lakes, because that's fresh water. So I could definitely see a population increase. It's just a matter of when that happens and how, is Cleveland going to be ready for it? Because, we still have, the effects of redlining in the outer belt around Cleveland and stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
And one of the only topics that we haven't touched on that absolutely will impact everywhere all of us live is this really critical election in November.
Oh, yeah.
And my personal opinion is I cannot believe this country can't give us two better candidates. It's pathetic.
Yeah. Well, I feel, and this opinion really got shaped when I was deployed in 2009, 2010, Afghanistan. And it's like we're another empire. And I feel like it's an empire we're going into the sunset, like many other empires. And it's a hard pill to swallow, kicking and screaming as we slide. Now, there are going to be, certainly bright moments. I mean, I'm not totally doom and gloom. I mean, you got to find the bright moments, but man, we're an empire that's going into the sunset, like the British Empire, and we're no different. And it's very challenging, all these realizations, oh, we got to bring back businesses back here, to our country. Well, you should have thought about that in the late 70s and 80s when you were shipping everything overseas and, for pure profit, or when you made corporations have the same rights as people.
And the tax codes and
the tax codes. So,
yeah.
we have a hand in our undoing, unfortunately, and sometimes I feel like we're more of a reactive country than a proactive country in terms of how we approach things. Um, yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting times. I agree. I mean, especially with this Project 2025 agenda being passed around to a lot of particular people and stuff, and yeah, that's all I can say. That's why I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to get back to Ohio before November. So yeah, I don't want to be down here.
Honestly, it's a little frightening. A
Yeah.
lot of stuff going on in this world. Oh, and it triggered a thought that I wanted to hit with you guys. I married a Jewish woman. We've raised our kids Jewish.
Okay.
They're juniors in high school. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on that we all know about now. It's tricky. I take a more black and white approach because I actually support Jews in Israel. And I witnessed, the morning I was up at 6 a.m. on October 7th, and I saw what happened. It was horrible. But it's certainly problematic. And one of the things that I thought was amazing about Shaker, and I know you guys will know this, and I believe you will agree with this. Whether you were black, white, Asian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, gay, straight, we all got along. We all respected each other. You could be a burnout that's in a band, or you could be the best baseball player. And we were together at the parties, and nobody was fighting. And I mean, yeah, sometimes a fight would, but you guys know, generally speaking, Shaker Heights, Ohio, when we were there, was like as cool can be. Everybody was respectful, and nobody saw color, religion, or anything else. That's what I believe. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I'd be interested in hearing your guys' opinions.
Well, that's why we pretty much started this podcast. Gabe and I have been talking about this a long time, like just to share our experiences and what we went through, because our parents fought long and hard for the struggle to get us in position to get us into this Shaker Heights school system. And it was hard for us because we didn't have the our parents didn't have the opportunities that everyone else had. It wasn't an equal playing field. And it was hard to keep up our properties and staying there. And, it just took a lot of stress. So, and then thinking back at that environment and those experiences, and then looking at the world of what is happening, it feels like our foundation is crumbling beneath us. Now, I know that we lived in an ivory tower pretty much after venturing out just not far when I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art, just meeting people from the west side of town, because they were asking me, like, why aren't you like everyone other black person that I meet, and this and so forth and so on. So we lived in a sort of utopian society. And after reading Laura Meckler's book, it allowed me to re-experience and understand how the community grew to what it grew into when we were there, and the difficulties that it's facing and what it's chasing down and trying to deal with. And on a micro and macro scale, back then we were the North Star for not just the area and not just for the nation, but for the globe. People were if you read about that stuff, it talks about how people were using us as a test, as test lab for what to do with their circumstances. So that was the impetus for the show. It's like, let's come back together and talk about this, especially with the dichotomy of our community being a high Jewish and black population. And like I just said, I always like to talk about this using the metaphor of us starting at the same base camp and coming back to the base camp at this time in our life and discuss like what's out there, what we can learn, you know, what kind of information are we bringing back, and how can we deal with what's going on out there so that we can actually be problem solvers. Maybe this is our moment now. Or we can just say, hey, it's going to shit like everything else, like every empire, like every malignant capitalistic society that gets too greedy, that needs is a caste system with a bunch of workers and 5% of corporations and people that make those decisions. So yeah, I'm really like upset about this shit. And it bugs me, and I try to ignore it and I try to look past it. And I worked in corporations for 25 years with Fortune 500 companies designing products. And the creative aspect of that, all of us, we sold our ideas for $1 and we're happy to have our jobs the next year. You know, it's such bullshit. So what do we do about it?
Well, you know, for me, Denny, like, you know, long and short, like my family came there in 72. We actually lived in Warrensville, and we were at that time Clarkwood Gardens. I think we were like one of a couple of black families that lived in that part, you know, in Warrensville. And then we moved to Shaker, and my family was a military family, Air Force. And so my dad had been out a couple of years. We had lived overseas. So Shaker scene, and my parents both came from Akron. And so it was a natural fit to just come back home and, you know, and have the fortune of being raised there. But, you know, I mean, like coming out into the world, yeah, you know, it was a very unique, special place, a bubble. And it could also be very difficult navigating the world, coming across folks, black, white, or other, that didn't have a nuanced perspective on each other and things. And, you know, I also say, particularly as a person of color, that Shaker thing was could be celebrated, and also it could be ridiculed by black or white, depending on the audience and company. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I think it, you know, with connecting with Eric, it has enabled us to be able to, you know, have a podcast like this. And yeah, experiences may vary, and I think in a lot of ways, people like yourself and a lot of people we've had on so far have this um, ability to have nuance and to also have meaningful diversity, equity, and inclusion in their personal life. Because I often feel like, you know, that's a buzzword now and it's being attacked, unfortunately. But if a person doesn't have meaningful DEI in their personal life, you can't talk to me about diversity, because I grew up with diversity, the good and the bad and the ugly of it. So, you know, so I look at, you know, when the DEI is being talked or promoted, I'm really studying like, okay, what's this person's background? Because do they really understand and know what they're talking about? Because I do, because I grew up in Shaker, you know. So yeah, so it's a very nuanced thing. Yeah, of course, you know. And a lot of people have, you know, talked about that nuance of growing up there and how special it was, you know. Hence, you know, everybody's experiences may vary.
And kind of bringing full circle from the beginning of the conversation, Eric, that was a problem that I had at US. It was not that diverse. And my whole life and around me was diverse from the day I could remember.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a very, you know, it stands out. It's a very unique thing, you know. I think it also translates for me. You know, Eric had said similar, and he could speak on that. But like in all my living journeys, besides in New York, you know, I've always have an average of living in a place for a couple of years and moving on. But I always try to gravitate toward a diverse area or a network of people, because that's what I know. And and that will, you know, obviously continue. But and it says a lot, because I mean, let's be real. I mean, we've come across all types that don't share opinions or viewpoints or had experiences that we would be like, oh, I get it, or that's cool, or we know some of the fucked up racial code shit that goes on out here. So yeah.
Hey, Gabe, are you moving something? I'm hearing some background noise.
No, I'm
not moving anything. I'm just sitting.
Do you guys hear like,
Yeah,
something?
I hear something like that.
Okay, if it's something that we can't control, I just thought you might be like twiddling something or moving a mouse or something.
Okay, how about right now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, it might have been my cord on the table.
Okay. Sorry.
But yeah, man. No, see, that's not me.
Yeah, whatever. We can't control it. It's live.
Yeah. So it's the Illuminati out there. They don't like us talking about, togetherness.
Well, we definitely have to have these difficult conversations now. I mean, the student group on race relations at Shaker, and we're all training for this. This is our moment, I think.
Do you guys have kids?
Yeah,
I don't.
I have 2 kids, both graduates. I like they're both athletes. I had a kid that played baseball at Tulane.
Oh, wow.
Which was like crazy, and a daughter that played volleyball at Cleveland State. Graduated last year, so
because that's kind of the next wave, obviously. Yeah. And they definitely think differently. My son, who's very smart and thoughtful and cool and musician and all that stuff, totally identifies as Jewish and totally supports Israel, but he's trying to process all the killing.
Yeah.
And it's weighing on him, and not just what happened on October 7th, but all the innocent people dying in Gaza. And I said, that's okay. The best thing we can do is talk about it. My personal opinion is 6 million Jews were murdered, probably more than that, but 6 million is the number, murdered in World War II and prior to that, 33 to 45. I visited concentration camps, multiple concentration camps. The shit is real. It's ugly. It's terrible. There's other human rights abuses that happen every day all over the world, including in this country. But as relates to the Jews, and we all grew up in a city that had a heavy Jewish population, they said after 1945, never again. And that was the mantra, rightly so. And, people have been screwing with them for 75 years since Israel became a country. But October 7th was the most egregious, atrocious attack on innocent people, for the Jews since World War II. I mean, we can talk about all the stuff that's going on and,
but I'm seeing what I'm learning, and I'm no Jewish historian. I'm seeing the same type of thing happening in America as it's happening in Israel. And I know why people like American citizens are unhappy because the United States pretty much supports Israel. Let's not back away from that. But living in this country, whether you agree with who the leadership is, and the past leadership with Trump, I mean, I don't know who doesn't have a big problem with him, but I do. But I believe, like in Russia or Israel, not everyone agrees with the leadership. And Netanyahu is not, scot-free from what's happening.
Oh God, no! And I'm very close with I'm very close with, people that live there. I mean, he's a piece of work. My issue is not now in America. My issue isn't being vehemently against kind of Israeli government position, whatever. It kind of transitions into, kill the Jews. And I have no problem if like my son said to me, I think they're being heavy-handed in Gaza. I said, that's okay for you to think that. And you might be right. And don't let anybody talk you out of your ideas or opinions. So if somebody wants to talk political government, that's one thing. When you start getting into religion and anti-Semitism, that's another thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But the two work together. I mean, we're watching our country bust apart at the seams because of these things, and it's happening all over the world. This populism, this we deserve this and this and that. And there's two sides to the story. That it's not always one-sided. That's what I hope all of us are ready to see. I don't believe in anti-Semitism in any stretch or form. But I've also heard about what's going on with the people of Gaza. They're stuck in the middle and they are being destroyed. And there's, everyone's caught in the middle. So war is bad, no matter how you slice it. Something has to be done. And it seems like America's supporting both sides of it. And you got to go ahead.
I will say this from a military perspective, someone who had the fortunateness to experience war in Afghanistan. And I will say that from a military perspective, I would hold Bibi and his crew for war crimes because, number one, they failed the Israeli people on October 7th. Because
that will come out for sure.
Yeah, but it needs to come out sooner. And also, too, the lack of a plan. I mean, look, it's one thing, go after the motherfuckers that did all the horrific shit. Yes, go after them. Get their scalps. I'm 100% with that. But when you start having excessive collateral damage with civilians, it becomes problematic for the future. Okay? And right now, with what's going on over there, and then what we know about the Hamas leadership that's still breathing and that lives in other countries, it becomes a very if you don't dig deep and see the connections and why things are being allowed, it gets really problematic. And to your point, it's not just black or white. It's also about the long term and what the long term strategy is, because okay, you're not going to eradicate every Palestinian and every Gaza, but you're going to amplify hatred for untold generations for those who may live to tell and then want to get back at Israel. And that becomes a very problematic thing where, anybody, Jewish identified has a target on their back. And, who wants to continue to live like that? I mean, and it's crazy. So yeah, it's just fucked up because, the people that need to be dead ain't dead. They're breathing. They get bank accounts, and the fact that it was a total surprise, I don't buy that. Everybody knows about tunnels. There's people who monitor financial transactions between arms dealers. And so this shit wasn't covered up. This wasn't it's ready to drop them. I almost feel like, this is my opinion, it was almost like Bibi and his crew allowed this shit to happen. He offered up his citizens. And, certainly, a lot of Gazans, Palestinians. It's very sinister.
It's interesting. I was at a dinner last night and there were two women there from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And they're African. And I say that as a point because there's been a real kind of battle for redistribution of colonial, if you will, land back to the Africans in Zimbabwe. And my parents have friends that live in Zimbabwe, and they're on the front line, have been for 20 years, losing land and whatever, and there's a lot of violence that you hear about. But I asked these women last night, because they kind of shuttle between Cleveland and Zimbabwe, and I said, how is the family back home? How is it when you go there? Do you feel safe? Are you okay? And the one woman, she's an older woman, she looks at me and she goes, I want to ask you the same questions about you in this country. And I said, that's a great answer. I mean, it's safe here and it's not safe. It's safe in Zimbabwe and it's not safe. It's like, look at all these mass shootings that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the government's doing nothing to fix it when it can be easily resolved through
it's a health
gun
crisis.
control measures and laws.
It's a health crisis, and they don't classify it as such. It's a health crisis because it's a pathology, and and popular culture doesn't do it any justice because we've become desensitized to violence. I mean, you want to expose somebody to their first gun, it's a video game. I mean, why are Call of Duty and all these other realistic gun video games are so popular? It's a great way to get somebody acclimated to this notion of killing and thinking that it's just like a video game. And I think for a lot of the youth getting caught up, in particular playing these games, they, if some of them decide to choose the military and because it's going to be fun and action, it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. And, I'm not saying ban video games, but there's no reference and context being taught to kids about, okay, I can go to Toys R Us and get a Nerf gun. And even though it's darts, but you're already getting people acclimated to shooting other people or things. And that's a very scary thing.
I'm seeing Gran Turismo in the streets, on the roads of Rochester, New York. I mean, people weaving traffic and
Fast and the Furious. Yeah.
Oh my God, it is. I mean, just one wrong move and one eye off the road, and it's curtains. They're going 100 miles an hour, like weaving through traffic. I see it every freaking day.
And then the road rage, you could flip somebody off back in the day and people go about their business. But nowadays, man, you do some shit like that, somebody's liable to get out their car or they're going to shoot at you. I mean, you never know what type of interaction you're going to have with somebody, especially on some driving stuff. So, yeah.
The thing I was thinking about like when Howard Stern first came on the radio and he would bring on like highly racist, like really racist people, and Howard would laugh and egg them on and how he laughed. And now how it's not funny anymore, like how it's mainstream and it's given, and the internet and everything has given everyone the same platform and a place to go and find their crew and be who they want to be, and it's becoming acceptable, and it's breeding like a pathogen, and it's not embarrassing to be against other people that aren't like you, a so-called minority, and it's just nothing is going to be good. Nothing good is going to come of this. Let's put it this way. It's all coming to a head, and that's why you are getting out of DC as fast as you freaking can. But Ohio, I didn't realize how conservative Ohio was.
Oh, Ohio's very conservative. 88 counties. Remember we had the Ohio civics class. 88 counties, like Cleveland. It's like a pattern from north to south. Cleveland.
Yeah,
Cleveland, Staten.
But Ohio, similar to so many of these other states, you know, Cleveland, Shaker Heights, you know, left leaning Democrat, right? But you get out in the rural areas,
Woo.
forget about it.
Hey, Denny, all you got to do is go up Mayfield to Chesterland.
I
Funny,
know.
funny story. A couple years ago, Greg Fuller. I was in town. It was for his mom's memorial. We're staying over at Mark Schechter's house. He's like way out there on County Line, Mayfield. Greg's like, yo, it's a great breakfast spot up the street. So we drive up Mayfield, and it's like this little strip mall. I recognize it because there's a store next door I used to go buy ammo from, and even me walking in there, it was like 48 hours walking into the bar, and so I'm like, Greg, I don't know about this spot. So he goes, no, it's all good. So we go next door into like the so-called diner. Man, it might have well been a Trump convention up in there. It was 48 hours again, the remix, and I was just like, Greg, I'm out.
Well, I thought, Gabe, you were going to talk about when you do that drive, and my kids are both at Hawken, and the upper school is off of Mayfield.
Yeah.
And if you go further east on Mayfield, they've got these gigantic Trump signs.
Yeah.
On the side of the road that they've never taken down since the last election.
Yeah, right. I saw that on interstate going through Pennsylvania from Ohio. You go
Breezewood.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see it every time I drive through there.
Yeah. I'm like, man, I hope my car doesn't stop over here. Like, but no, it's really scary. I mean, it's very
Well, that's a question I would ask you guys, and I would ask women the same question.
Yeah.
If you're black or you're female, how on earth can you vote for Trump?
That's a very good question. I would say it's also a reminder that black people are not monolithic, and to use an expression, all skin folk are not kinfolk. And
I understand that.
Yeah, but I think it's really about I want to say class and reference, because I mean, look at the thing he did a couple of days ago. He was up in the Bronx. He brought up these two rappers, Chef G and somebody else, and they were, to me, the Diamond and Silk remix crew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And but it's just like, wow. But people are, again, look at it from a different angle, because depending on who you're talking to, they're looking at it like, oh, yo, Trump's the businessman. He keeps it real. And so they're not seeing the full spectrum.
And they're low information voters, if they're
yes, there you go. That's the perfect word. Low information voters. And just a reminder, not black people are not monolithic. And when you come across those ones, you're just kind of like, okay, It's
about assimilation. It's about feeling that you're belonging when you find some economic wealth. And what we're starting to see with the Hispanic community, they're starting to find their conservative ways, and they're starting to move over. And it's religion, it's also masculinity, it's a bunch of things, it's a bunch of cultural things. And Gabe, you sent me that article about Hillary Clinton, her book. She was warning about all this stuff happening. It's they never quit, they never stop. I mean, the lost cause is the women of the Confederacy, or whatever their name was, Daughters of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
All that stuff, those statues came like way after the war. It's these this mythology that continues. And Gabe and I always talk about all these things that we didn't know about our culture that happened, these inventions and these lost cities, these thriving business districts, like aside from Black Wall Street, but these businesses that were burned down. I didn't know about Central Park being a hub for a middle class or upper middle class Black, establishments and that was taken down. And, we don't know that because the history has been taken away or hidden from us.
Oh, and take a look at this too, Denny. For example, you talk about, Nazis. I hate Nazis and I hate Taliban. But the fact that the American Nazi Party, the fact that there is even an American Nazi Party that was allowed to flourish. Now, like before World War II jumped off, there's this video at Madison Square Garden.
I saw it.
Yeah, black and white. And it's just like, wow. So this party was allowed to flourish. And then we brought Germans, POW camps down south, where the German POWs were treated better than the blacks. The Germans, methodology of trying to eradicate the Jews was partially inspired by American Jim Crow laws. And even the Nazis were like, wow, Americans are really harsh. But we like a lot of this stuff that we want to put into our own thing toward the final solution. And then after World War II, we still have an American Nazi Party, and we shits and giggles, the Blues Brothers. But it's like we've allowed hate, we've enabled hate, and it's when it's convenient, or we overlook one thing, but we allow the other thing to flourish. I mean, I love the fact that Mel, my man Mel, guy did Blazing Saddles. I mean,
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. I mean, Springtime for Hitler and, other things to address that trauma and make light of it. But, in general, I mean, our mainstream culture has enabled Nazism and alt-right stuff historically through the years. So, we've had a hand in this, in our troubles, and it's just fucked up.
I mean, how many times can Trump get away with going past the gag order, and then there's no consequences for him, and people have left their crimes, serve life sentences.
No consequences.
It's a term I've been using lately, related to some people that I have to deal with. It's entitlement. People feel entitled. I can do that. That's my right.
I'll be right back. Keep on talking.
And I think that there's a lot of that in Trump. It's his right. He can do what he wants. That's how he feels. And without consequences, he further believes that.
Yeah, and he has the backing, and then who entitled. He has. That's a hat I designed because I was seeing people wearing the
I got it in hats. Camouflage too.
They're wearing the Titleist hats, and I looked at that and thought about people that play at golf courses and how hard it was for Jews and blacks to get on golf courses. So I used the same font and figured out a way to change the verbiage and try to get the message across subtly but strongly, to see if anyone would notice.
Well, in my business, I have had in the last, call it 15 years, 6 people issues, people that I do business with. I've had 6 issues. And I was asking my business partner, I was asking my wife, I go, is it me? Like, the common denominator is me. And then I thought about these issues and I thought about what was happening. And in every scenario, everything was okay as long as I was saying, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, no problem. But the minute I pushed back, that's when the problem started. Because in all 6 instances, I was dealing with people that were entitled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to change. They want those benefits, those entitlements. They don't want them to change. They don't want to feel guilty, and they don't want those things to go away, and they don't want to hear about it. And I understand that. Most people, human nature is you don't want to hear about it. You don't want to feel stressed about it. You've had this life, and you want it to go along like it's always gone along, and you don't want to hear any complaints about it. And you will find any way or means to push it down and not hear it. It's a difficult conversation, but until these conversations are had like we're having, it's going to come to a head. We're going to have riots like '66 and riots in the streets, and it's going to happen. I don't want them to happen, but
well, it already has happened.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen to a greater degree. I'm surprised it hasn't happened.
I mean, I think about the minds of my kids and their friends. You know, there was the pandemic. There was the murder of George Floyd. There were the riots that followed that. There was the insurrection, which we watched live on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Flipping crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Then you've got October 7th. You've got Trump not conceding. I mean, on and on and on. You know, what's going on in these kids' minds?
But it's entertainment. I speak to kids. I'm like, I do not envy your position. And I blame us because we were kind of caught flat-footed because of all the work that our parents went through to get us to that point. And we were pretty much scot-free. I mean, we had free tuition, basically, society-wise, we had way more opportunities. My father was one of the first Black firefighters on the fire department, one of the first Black petty officers in World War II, and he had a hard hill to climb. And if you think how short history is, people, slavery, that was a long time ago, the Holocaust. My dad will be 100 next year if he lived. He died when he was 86, but he would be 100. That people live that long. So like within 68 was the civil rights.
Yeah, was it 64? Yeah, 64. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about, you know, civil rights, women's rights, like all these legislation, and then Roe versus Wade being overturned and gutted.
And the Lynching Act was just passed as a law, you know, anti-lynching act, and it still takes an act of Congress, which they have to renew every 20 years to enable Blacks to vote. So it's not a law, it's an act of Congress, from what I understand.
And you know, it's people, and it's people's mindsets, you know, because people create policy. And yeah, I mean, it's a reckoning time. And I think that, look, if every day, if we looked into the abyss, yeah, we would lose our minds, like unfortunately a lot of people who have. But I think the challenge going forward, you know, as we go into the, you know, I call the Mariana Trench, is that every day we got to find, you know, those, you know, moments of light, and also just be just grateful that we wake up and we could turn on water and everything else. Like, you know, like right now, like I haven't had my air conditioners out in my apartment building. Probably some cheap part on the roof that went out. It's like 80 something in here, you know? I mean, yeah, it can be a little uncomfortable. I mean, I've been in extreme temperatures, but at the same time, I check myself like, yo, I say to myself, yo, motherfucker, it could be a whole hell of a lot worse, you know? And which is true. So, you know, I think everything comes down to perspective, and in developing a conscious perspective and how we rate the fuckery out here and how we navigate it, because that's the key. Like, war is going to be going on in the streets, however it's going to go on. It's just going to do what it's going to do. Like, but it's about how we're going to respond to it. And what options do we have to respond to it, to navigate that or mitigate it? And that's going to, you know, that's going to be the challenge for all of us, you know.
And the biggest compounding factor from when we were 16 to now, when my kids are, you know, 17, social media.
Oh, without question. I mean,
change the world.
Yeah, it's the slippery slope. It's the Pandora's box, social media, TikTok, and all that, and how we consume information now. You know, because kids are wired differently. You know, like it's trippy to think like you guys have kids that grew up in the primarily a digital age. You know, like so yeah, kids are wired differently. You know, even from the womb. You know, all the frequencies that are hitting us. You know, and everything. So yeah, it's going to get interesting for the youth, and we can only hope for the best. That you know, like the both of yous, like you guys planted seeds, and it's just a matter of when they sprout in your kids. You might not see it now, but at the appropriate time, you know, whatever seeds were sprouted will sprout. Like, yo, you know,
Well,
my
it
parents
definitely
told me about
worries me.
this.
I've seen my kid, listen to Joe Rogan and, take on these conspiracy theories. And, you know, it's hard to, I mean, we grew up, it's hard for any kid to really listen to their parents and
Yeah.
just think about this, you know, grind hard and get rich like every internet star does. I mean, the perception and the ideals are just like ridiculous, and
Oh yeah.
it just even school, it seems like college isn't the same way anymore. I was a adjunct college professor teaching design to seniors, and I was told just to push these people through. And I think that's attributable to these online colleges, Phoenix, because people are all going after the same dollar. They're trying to maximize their dollar, and you're paying for your education. You give us 50 grand, yeah, we'll pass you through. We don't have to worry about our
Well,
reputation.
let me interrupt you right there. The fact that you even have to pay 50 grand is
I know.
ridiculous.
It's crazy. That's a well, not a house, but that's a sizable down payment or something. Or
My
somebody's just
my daughter's looking at schools in the U.S. By the way, with all the anti-Jew protests, I feel like crossing most of them off the list. But these are schools $80,000-$90,000 a year,
yeah,
and she also likes St. Andrews in Scotland, and St. Andrews is like 30 grand a year. The Europeans just don't. They have a different format and formula. This whole
yeah.
college thing is way out of whack.
Oh
We
yeah.
live in a psychotic. I coined this term psychotic capitalistic society. We are psychotic capitalism, and that's what we have to operate in. And you know, it makes sense. Send her over to St. Andrews. Better education. Better education.
Honestly, selfishly, I hope that's what she decides.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it'd be fabulous.
Or what's your career interest at the moment?
Her career interests:
Yeah. If you
international law, international business.
hmm. I would also make a pitch for the United States Air Force or Navy.
Isn't that
Um,
something?
yeah, to have school paid for, and then go through foreign service, U.S. State Department. Get your stuff paid
And
off.
you're saying in that scenario, join the force right out of high school or go to one of the military academies or both?
Yeah, either one. You know, either one. To maximize on the opportunity and the training, uh, in terms of what she might want to get into. But also too, you know, like the State Department has a track because they need future people, diplomats, emissaries, and stuff like that. You know.
You know what's I mean, and this could cause take a whole nother hour to talk about. But when you kind of think about what we're talking about, the country and the state
Yeah.
and all of this, I've maintained for like 25 years, even my own two children, for sure. Every kid would either benefit from a gap year or 2 years in the military right out of high school.
1,000%, 1,000%. I'll take it even further. You create various service tracks, uh, infrastructure, environment, certainly military, and you know whatever track, a mandatory 2 years with benefits. obviously, for each unique track to be of service. And the gap years thing is it's a great idea too, because I mean, I don't have any kids, so this is all theory, but if I was blessed with kids, I'd be like, nah, you're not going to college right after high school. You're either going to work or do something else and figure it out.
I know a guy I worked with. He's a Belgian French citizen. He had the choice of either serving in the military, or he had a choice after high school, or serving a community in need. So he decided to go to South Africa and help tribes people create businesses from the ground up, based on
amazing.
Yeah, it's like a Peace Corps type of thing,
Exactly.
So I'm totally with that. That's why, Denny, like in the years to come, I'm going to try to become the dictator of the United States of America.
I'm trying to start a cult, by the way.
But, I will have a velvet glove and an iron fist, fair but firm. So we can
you'll have good ideas.
Yes. But, we need a multi-party coalition government because,
100%. Two-party system has failed.
Yeah, because, when the cameras are off, everybody eats at the same table. So
it's rigged. It all benefits them in the end. It's not by the people for the people. It's the corporations that are driving this and keeping them in office.
So Denny, when I decide to run, I'll need to talk with you about producing the events, the happenings.
I'm coming. Let's go. We need people like you.
The drop-ins. We're gonna call them the drop-ins.
Hey guys, I could go for hours on end, but I'm in charge of the grill tonight.
Oh, right. So, it's gonna rain tomorrow. Well,
so who would you like to see on our show? That's how we end the show before we cue the music, Gabe.
All right, hold on. Give me a second. Let me get the music. Hold on. Yes, our normal music person is away.
Go ahead, Denny. Who would you like to see on our program? And
I tell you guys, I haven't looking at I think I saw one woman that you've had, but I think you need more female representation, especially as we head to November.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of people that are doing interesting things or that have had an interesting experience or that have lived in interesting places. I haven't talked to, and I don't even know if you guys remember, Rob Weissman in 100 years. But from what I understand, he's doing some really interesting things in Washington. I was just got information on, if you guys remember Jim Hexter,
yeah.
He's lived in Asia for the last 25 years, and I don't know, in the last couple of years has come home. I love his perspective. It'd be interesting. And I know that I mentioned a moment ago, get some females in there. There are some really smart, accomplished women doing big things from the class of 84. Don't ask me because I don't remember specifically, but I remember seeing like Julie Blunden. Do you guys remember her?
I remember her in name, yes.
Yeah, she's got some giant job or big position. Just be interesting to, you've had Dent and Fuller and Denny and me, and I saw Eric Hansen, and I'm sure that was interesting. But I'd sure like to get the voice of the females. I'd like to hear what they're thinking.
Emily Hooper, I'd like to see what she was doing. She was big. Or even Kenny Danford, those people that were in this score. Those are the people we need. We're just getting who we can get right now. And the conversations are trending with Little League Baseball, entertainment, which is great. And I understand, but I don't want to saturate our show with just that.
Yeah.
No, the beauty of this discussion that we've had, even if it wasn't your podcast, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking through a number of topics with you guys. It's great to remember all the good times, but we got to bond together to make sure that the future generations, have similar great experiences.
Well, thanks for broaching that, because, we have to weigh where you want to go with it, and just saying, well, I try to stay in the middle. Well, we follow your lead until, we hear something that sparks us, that we have to react to. So thank you for opening up about that so that we could open up and give our honest opinions.
And one other idea, I think you guys would benefit, and I think the viewer would be interested. Bring on somebody from the class of Shaker 2024.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
40 years later.
Yeah.
What's your world like at Shaker? How was it growing up in Shaker? What's going on at Shaker? How are race relations at Shaker? What is going on with, colleges? What's the pressure on that? Are less people going to college? There was such an interesting thing I saw on Bill Maher like a month ago, and he was like, this whole college thing and the expense of it, it's ridiculous. You can go to vocation, become an electrician or a plumber, and you're going to make more money than the lawyer whose house you're fixing.
And have a lifelong trade.
And no debt.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of college unless you're studying law or medicine or something like that. Which,
well, another thing is that they took out a lot of the vocational stuff from a lot of schools. And I remember like at Woodbury and at Shaker we had industrial design, we had home economics. Heights had a pretty advanced like vocational track there at Heights High School.
I got my car painted at Cleveland Heights.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's that's a crucial thing, like introducing folks early to these alternatives and not having to feel this pressure. Oh, I gotta go to this school. And you think about unfortunately, we all know people that went to college and it wasn't for them, and they left. So I feel you.
All right, cue the music. We're gonna let this guy go grill, have fun this holiday weekend.
Guys, stay in touch, and I really want to see you both in July.
Yeah, and I'll reach out to you about the other stuff that we talked about.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you, bro.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Take care.
Weekend.
All right. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Denny Young. A very lively, spirited conversation that we had for 2 hours. So watch it at your leisure. Yeah.
Well, we're also available. We're streaming on Spotify as well as where else?
iHeartRadio. A bunch of Yeah, let me look at the RSS thing.
We need to do this against the clicker too. We should have done that. But yeah, we're available on other platforms, so you don't have to see our ugly faces as much. So
yeah, I gotta find it. Yeah, we'll post it.
Yeah,
where we're at. But anyway, for all those who tuned in, shout out to was it Craig? Craig commented, and anybody else that's been watching?
Wayne Taylor, it's an interesting show. Yeah, we've got. Yeah, let's ramp this thing up. We've got our accolades and our things that we've gained and fun that we had back in the day. Let's address the problems that we're dealing with today. That we're built for. I think the Shakerites.
Yeah, let's weave it in as a fine tapestry. Okay, well. Another show. Up next, we have Christine Corby on June 2nd. Speaking of women, entrepreneur, class of 86. And after that, we have Mark Fleming, live and direct. Mark Fleming. And I'm sure there'll probably be just a smidgen of baseball talk, but not a whole lot. Well, there's a lot more to talk about. The same thing with Christine Corby. So yes, every conversation every week takes on a life of its own, and we just go with the flow. So thank you once again. Check out the merch. We finally got rid of the numbers. We figured that out. So Shaker Garment co.myshopify.com. Eric's shirt. We are going to have custom shaker shirt signs to order. So if you lived on Hildana, Southington, Keswick, Lindholm, Palmerston, you can rep your street. So
and we'll make those available, and we'll advertise that. I don't know if you've checked out our spring commercial with the bucket hats that match the Hawaiian shirts.
You need to get
Those are
yourself a bucket
popular. This was an early idea of the Trinity that helped with the integration of Shaker Heights, where Ludlow and Moreland were involved, and Malvern was part of the busing. So I tried to create that with the skyline. So we'll have more of that. Thanks for all those people that are buying merch.
Thank you very much.
The rapid transit is really moving, pardon the pun, and we're enjoying creating this stuff and celebrating Shaker Heights and its history and its utopian mythology, if you will.
Yes. And I was going to say lastly, if you're part of the class of 84, don't want to sound like a broken record, but buy your tickets July 19th through the 21st. We will be broadcasting in and around the reunion. So if you want to hear the show, join us then.
And hey, we're still looking for Michael Chapman. Who else are we looking for? Quentin Rubin. I'd like to talk to David Embry. I'd like to chop it up with my fun bunch, John Miller, David Embry, Morier Moore. We had fun in language skills class. I'd like to have a panel and talk about, have some shows which we focus around some clicks and things that we did and some silly stuff that we used to do.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to doing The Wall with Peck and Griffin and Andrew Clark and all them from Tony Peck's episode, The Wall. And that could be a great jump off for the clicks and crews. What else as we wind it down?
We'll have a bunch of things cooking. Keep checking the merch site.
And subscribe. Subscribe.
Oh, the kickball game. We got a poster up. We're gonna post some other things as we grow closer.
That's right. Ludlow, Moreland. We're gonna do it.
All right, cue the music.
Okay.
Let's get out of here, Gabe.
Okay, I already did. Hold on. There we go. Okay, we'll see you. Until next time, have a safe Memorial Day weekend. Stay hydrated. Until next time, we're out.